started with the Graphical Scheduler. If you're using a Workcenter that has a menu action defined, you can start it that way. If you don't, you can also start it from the search box. So what we're looking at is Workcenter groups, Workcenters. You'll see a section for the Workcenter itself within that area. So you can drag from Workcenters to something else, and then machine centers. All right, across the top, we're going to see our time scale. Now this time scale is configurable and can change. Right now we're looking at one of the most granular views, which is hour and day. In the middle of the system, we're looking at release production order routing lines. So if we hover over one, we can see that we're looking in this case at the production order number 17, at the specific operation of 10 for wheel assembly. Okay, and we can see the individual timestamps on them. If you click on it, you'll also be able to see some high-level information as well in the header. Now, what we can do is we can change what some of these colors mean. So these are example colors. So first off, we need to figure out what these colors do. So let's navigate to what we call our view. So our view is a collection of different data that we can show inside of the scheduler. So right now, if you've just run the wizard, you're probably just going to have the default view. So we can edit that. We can change the default time scale to be a different scale. So for example, if I wanted to see at a more macro level, perhaps day and week, I can change that to the default view, and then we'll see that it shows a much more outward looking view on there. If I wanted to start off with a more granular view, I can change that back to hour and day. Okay. In our view, we can have what's called data sources. Our data sources are different things that we can show on the screen. By default, you're going to be looking at production orders, and specifically production order routing lines. Now you can define which filters you want on each of these, and you can have multiple different data sources. So for example, if you only want to look at released production orders, you would simply add on a filter. And we would say choose released. And we see here that now it's only showing us production order routing lines where the production order is released. If we wanted to, we can add in extra views as well. So let's create another view. We're going to call this simulated. I'm going to allow writes. If you don't want it to be draggable, you can also make it read-only. So in this case here, we're going to make the simulated ones read-only. And we're going to change the filter in this case, not to be released, but simulated instead. The tooltip template and the cell template are also configurable. So the tooltip template is what you see when you hover over one of those routing lines, and the cell template is what you see inside of the cell. So we're going to change this just to say simulated, so we know it's ours. There's some more advanced options available as well. So now we see our simulated orders. And we see that our cell template has now been adjusted to show simulated. Let's change the colors. So we first navigate to Review, and we choose Configure Colors and Styles. These are just examples. In this scenario, what we're seeing is when the routing status on that production order routing line is finished, we're going to make the text color white and the background color red. And we're just going to call this finished steps. So we can see that in action right here. So we know that these routing lines are now finished. If we look at the released production orders, we're now looking at the status, not the routing status, marked as released. And we're saying we'd like these to be white with a dark blue background. And we can see what these are here. Now those yellow orders we see are coming from this style. So this is an example where it's showing multiple filters all at the same time. If you'd like, you can also use other fields as well. So we have an example of status and routing status. Perhaps there is something in a production order, in an operation, or in a name that might indicate its importance. Or perhaps if you have a field that can be used to identify if it's late, you can use that for color coding as well. When you do change your colors and styles, just make sure to refresh the page and it'll load those new colors. The dates action is going to let us change which scale we're looking at right now, and then also what date we want to look at. The filters is going to be showing us filters for all of our data sources. So here's our first one that we started with, where we changed the status to be released. And then here's our second one that we just created for simulated, where we're also filtering to just simulated. Now, if we wanted to further narrow this down, so let's see what some of our data looks like here. So let's say that we wanted to only show where the, let's say that the description says wheel in it. So we can add on a filter. And we're only going to do this for the blue ones, which we know are released now. We're going to say description is star wheel. And now I'm only seeing the wheel for that release production order routing line data source. Now you'll notice that it also updates the data source view here as well. So for example, if I wanted to remove this later on, I can simply say I only want to do this. And now I've got my two different data sources again. All right, so that is how you can have multiple different colors for color coding, and how you can have multiple different data sources with different filters. This can be used for Workcenter filtering, Workcenter group filtering, or other kinds of filters. And how you can also start using this basically just to start looking at the current day, or whatever dates that you decide to choose. Okay, let's make a change. Now, we've configured the simulated orders not to be draggable. So if we try and drag it, what we're going to see is this message. This data source is configured to prevent changes. If we wanted to change that, all we need to do is just navigate to the data sources, and then we can change that from read-only to allow writes. And then we're done. So now I can drag and drop, and now it'll let me change that. So behind the scenes, that'll also reschedule anything following the standard Business Central rescheduling logic. You can also move things to another Workcenter. So let's change some of our defaults here. We're going to change this a little bit higher. Day and week. And we're going to move some items from the general Workcenter of Assembly Department. We're going to drag it onto specific machines. So we're going to drag this. You let go. It starts updating. We're going to drag this one. We're going to move it also from not just to a machine center for Mike Siemens, but also to a different time. Now we'll see how it also rescheduled all of the other items at the same time. And that's it.
Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content.